Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley. The Lord has really been pressing on my heart to share my testimony with you guys. Since my testimony is very long and extremely heavy, I'm actually going to break my testimony up and I'm going to be doing a testimonial series. Every Friday, I'm going to upload another episode for my testimonial series. In first grade, my world turned upside down. We had moved into a new house in a brand new neighborhood and started a new school. On the outside, everything seemed to be going great. Little did I know that everything was about to fall apart. My mom had relapsed and was back abusing crack cocaine. You see, I never witnessed my mom high on drugs. She would come home from work, make dinner, spend time with us, and then go lock herself in the room. I was in first grade and so excited to be going to a new school. Once the school year had started off, a lady started visiting me at the time. She would pull me out of class and she slowly began to ask me questions about myself. She would ask me what type of shows did I like, did I have dinner, what was my favorite meal. Slowly those questions became more personal. She asked me, did my mom make me dinner? Did my mom spend time with me? And then she asked me, have I ever seen my mom smoke? At the time, I didn't really know what she meant, so I assumed she meant cigarettes. And I told her, I've never seen my mom smoke cigarettes, but I know her boyfriend does. At first, I really didn't see anything wrong with the questions that she was asking me, but the moment that she asked me, did my mom smoke, something just didn't sit right with me. I remember going home that day and telling my mom and her then boyfriend about the conversation. I'll never forget that her boyfriend got really upset. He looked at me and he called me a snitch and he told me I was going to be the reason that me and my sisters got taken away. I didn't quite understand what he meant by taken away, but he made sure to explain. He told me that the lady was there to try to figure out what was going on at the house, and she was asking questions that way she could take me and my sisters away from my mom and we would no longer be with her. I immediately started to feel guilty. The revelation of finding out that our conversations were not pure and that she had intentions to take me away from my mom shook me to my core. I remember going to school and being anxious, wondering if this was going to be the day that she would come and visit me and take me out of class. The day that she finally did come, I remember going into the counselor's office with her. Me being so young, I told her that she was an alien and I knew she was trying to take me away from my mom and I never wanted to see her. I told her never to come back to the school again and I just busted the door open and I took off running down the hallway with tears down my eyes. Honestly, I thought that was going to be the last time that I saw her. Some time had passed and I hadn't seen her for quite some time, so I thought everything was fine. One day, right before school break, I think it was fall break, the teacher told me to grab my things and that I would be leaving for the day and I needed to head down to the office. I remember telling all my classmates bye and telling them I couldn't wait to see them once we came back from the break. Little did I know that would be the last time I would be at that school. What followed next was something like a scene out of a movie. I remember walking out of my classroom into the hallway and being met by my two younger sisters and my older cousin. As we begin to make our way to the office, we just see all these police cars. We see all these police and my cousin just yells, "Run." So we make a beeline for the side door and we're running as hard as we can. We're hearing sirens and before I know it, we're surrounded. We're ended up taken to the CPS headquarters in downtown Dallas. I really didn't know what was going on, but I remember my cousin telling me they don't keep the bad kids. So she began to kick, scream, and throw things. And I just remember sitting there being paralyzed by fear. A lady comes in to where they're holding us at, and she tells us that we would not be going home. They then separate us from each other. So it's me, my two sisters, my older cousin, and my little cousin. Me and my middle sister, we're together. They give us a duffel bag with clothes and we're put into a car. We're driving and it's dark at night. I don't know where we're at, but I know I'm somewhere in Dallas because I'm remembering the landmarks. I'm looking around and it looks slightly familiar to me. I'll never forget our first night at our foster home. We walked into a sleepover. Our foster parents were actually throwing a sleepover for their niece's birthday. She was in high school and they were so excited to see their new cousins. So her and her friends, they put makeup on me and my sister. They treated us like dolls, and we got to stay up and watch movies with them and just spend time with the older girls. It was really a distraction from what had just happened. As our time continued there, things started to get really uncomfortable. In the middle of the night, the lady's husband would come into the room and walk around the room. He would check our beds, and he might have just been trying to make sure we hadn't ran away. But because I had experienced before that a lot of sexual abuse, I was very uncomfortable. I remember pretending to be asleep, but watching over my sister like a hawk as he stood over her in the late night hours. I remember being picked up one day, and I don't really know what led up to it, but I ended up getting into an argument with the foster mom, and she was just calling me all types of names. And I told her, I'm not your daughter. You need to be worried about why your husband is coming into our room late at night. And after that, it was a blur. I just remember we were crying and screaming and going back and forth. The next day, we were picked up early by the same foster mom, and she told us that we would no longer be with her. She was taking us back to the CPS headquarters because they were going to put us in a group home where we would be with our youngest sister. I was so happy that we were going to all three finally be together. At the group home, everything was divided by your gender. So on one half of the house, there were rooms for the boys. There was bathroom for the boys, and on the other half, there was room for girls, and there was a bathroom for girls. We had a common eating area, like a kitchen, and then we had a playroom, and that was where we would all interact. But as far as sleeping, showering, everything was separate. In the rooms, they had cameras to make sure that no one would try to run away. The rooms held about 4 to 5 girls. Oftentimes when I wanted to pray, I would go into the bathroom because it was the only time I really could be alone with God. Since I had grown up in church, I knew that I could go to God with my problems. I remember praying for months and months that my mom would come and get me, or that my grandma would come and get me. I prayed that he would help me, that he would take my pain away. My middle sister would often have panic attacks at the group home, and a lot of times the staff would take our privileges away from watching TV and then blame it on my sister and say, well, she's having panic attacks, so no one can watch TV. This caused the other kids to get very mad at her, and they would try to gang up on her, and I would try to explain that she just really wanted to go home. One day I got very sick and they took me to the doctor. I found out I had tonsillitis. My tonsils had gotten so swollen, I could barely even breathe. So I ended up having to stay home from school. I missed about a week of school. So it was Monday through Friday. That Friday, something came over me. I lifted myself out of bed and I went into the bathroom and I got on my knees and I was crying so hard. My head was hurting. I was crying so hard. And I was praying to God, and I was saying, please, Lord, please. I'm just a child. I didn't ask for this. Why are you putting me through this? What did I do to deserve this, God? Take my pain away. Don't you see me? Are you mad at me? And I will never forget, I heard a still, quiet voice that said, it is over. Before I knew it, I got up, I walked into the room, and I began packing my clothes and my 2 younger sisters' clothes. After hearing the voice say, it is done, I knew that I would no longer be in that foster home. I got up and I began to go into the room and pack my clothes. Then I packed both of my sisters' clothes. The staff members ran into the room and asked me, what was I doing? They asked, was I running away? And I told them, no, someone is coming to get me. I will not be here anymore. And I'll never forget how they looked at me. They thought I was crazy. And they just told me to lay back down and that I would feel better soon. But I just had this feeling inside that that was going to be my last day there. I knew that God had heard me. And for the first time, I had heard him. I remember my sisters coming home that day from school, and I told them I packed their stuff and that we would no longer be there. And they really didn't understand what was going on. No more than 30 minutes to an hour later, my grandma walked through the door with tears in her eyes, holding a paper saying, I got custody of y'all. Y'all are coming home. Pack your bags. I remember just looking at the staff members and their face being in complete, utter shock. I looked at my grandma and I told her, our stuff is already packed. We're ready to go. She kept asking me, how did I know that she was coming? And I told her that God told me. God told me we were leaving. As we walked out of that group home, tears were running down my face. I felt like I was free. God had saw my pain. He heard me. And he didn't answer me the first time I prayed, the first night that we got taken away from my mom. He answered me months later, but I didn't know what he was doing in the background. I didn't know that my grandma was working to get custody of me and my sisters. But he was faithful. I know you have been praying for something and you may not be getting an answer from God, but I want to encourage you to keep pressing through, to keep getting on your knees and praying to God. He hears you and he sees you. You do not know what he is doing on your behalf behind the scenes. God hears you. You may not get the answer when you want it, but you will get an answer from him when you need it. I'm sharing this story to encourage you. That just like that young girl that was in that foster home that was crying out to God every night to save her, but wasn't hearing an answer. And eventually, months later, he moved on her behalf, that God is going to move on your behalf. Do not faint. Do not give up. God is for you. He is never against you. God loves you so much. Thank you for tuning in to episode 1 of my testimonial series. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Also, hit the notification bell. That way you can get notifications every time I upload a video.